Hey guys, how's it going? Welcome to the Shrewsbury Biscuit podcast. I'm your host, Alex Whiteley, and joined with me today is our very own Mayor Phil Gillam. Thank you very much for joining me, sir.
Pleasure, Alex. Pleasure.
Yeah, it's been a while since, officially since we spoke. I mean, I've got like vox pops of you in places. I know Julie saw you at the bike event, the cycling event, and I saw you at the Darwin Festival. But we haven't had a good chance to sit down and talk about your year as mayor, because it's been quite a unique year as mayor. I think that's fair to say.
Yeah, well, not that I've got anything to compare it to, really, but yeah, it's been fantastic. I've loved every single minute, and they've given me an extra 6 months as well.
Yeah, has that ever happened before in your knowledge?
No, it's all down to coronavirus. I mean, that's what's prompted this, is that normally every May, the mayor would hand over to the next incoming mayor, and there's a ceremony, and the new mayor takes office and all that. Well, it very quickly became apparent that there was no way that we could have any kind of ceremony. And it seemed, that was the first thing, that we simply couldn't do it. We physically couldn't meet and do it. The second thing that occurred to us was that it would be extremely unfair on the incoming mayor to preside over a year in which nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because, of course, every event, large and small, has been cancelled or postponed. So no flower show, no carnival, no folk festival. All these wonderful things that happen in Shrewsbury every year have been kicked into touch. So Gwen was ready to take over as the new mayor, Gwen Burgess. And sadly, it just didn't seem the right time to do it. So we all got together, myself and Gwen and the town clerk, and we had a little chat about it. And it was decided that, at least nominally anyway, I carry on for 6 months until November. And I don't really anticipate, even given the Prime Minister's latest proclamations, I don't really anticipate very much happening over those months. It would be nice to think that as we get towards September, October, things start to loosen up a bit, and we have new things opening and big events happening again. I don't know. I try and, I am an optimist, but let's not get carried away. It could be a while yet before things get back to normal. So then the plan is that then Gwen would take over as the new mayor in November, and then hopefully, all things being equal, we have a proper mayor making ceremony then in May 2021. And so I will have done 18 months, and the idea is that Gwen will then do 18 months in effect. So yeah, it's been prompted obviously by the pandemic and the lockdown and all that. But yeah, it's been a tremendous 12 months. I've really loved every moment.
Yeah, I mean, I remember speaking to you early on. I think it was like 6 weeks in. I think it was Comic Salopia. I saw you. I mean, we went to get you on the show, and then I saw you, and you're very much overwhelmed with everything that you've been, all the great things that you've been going to. You see, like sometimes there's 2 things a day. You're very windswept.
Three things, yeah.
How was it for you? I mean, I know you were when we spoke before you became the mayor, you were very, very looking forward to it. Very much so. Was it at the beginning? Was it more than you anticipated, or was it exactly what you expected?
I suppose it was a bit more than I anticipated. I was quite surprised at the number of events that we attend, and I'm sure you've met Bob, who is the mayor's officer, or was the mayor's officer. Just retired after about 150 years. Lovely man, Bob Handley, fantastic. And he is the mayor's officer, or was the mayor's officer, and he would call round and pick me up, and sometimes my wife as well, and we would go to an event, and jokingly, I would say, as he arrived at the front door, "Oh no, not you again," because it just, it really was. It was crazy. Sometimes, as you say, Alex, it was sometimes 2, even 3 different events in one day. And it was hardly worth Bob going home because he'd be back again within a couple of hours, But it's just tremendous. And the lovely thing about being the mayor is that 99% of the things that you do are positive and upbeat and happy. It's generally opening new businesses or opening new shops or going to lovely events like the flower show or the carnival. Meeting interesting people like Griff Rhys-Jones, for example, springs to mind. Fascinating bloke, yeah. And Giles Brandreth, I met him, and just meeting some very interesting people along the way. So it's all great fun, really.
I mean, I know you've been a pretty recognisable character in Shrewsbury before you were mayor. It was like, you're part of a lot of the press, and you've been writing books and very much a part of the community. But what was it like taking that step up to being like instantly recognisable everywhere you go in town? People stopping you, "Hello, Mr. Mayor, hello." How was that for you? That must have been a huge shock for you.
It's very nice. It's very nice. I remember that we would be on our way from one thing to another, and people would stop you in the street, and they might say, "We're having such and such going on in 3 weeks' time. Is there any chance, do you think, that you might be able to come along?" And so that's how it worked very often. We'd be at one event. I remember a wreath laying event during Remembrance, the weekend of Remembrance Sunday, and we laid a wreath in St. Mary's churchyard. And then Bob and I were walking through the street, through Castle Street, and we were literally stopped about an entirely different event, and these ladies said, we're opening this place in a few weeks' time. Is there any chance? And so that was always nice, the spontaneity of it, that all of a sudden you've got another thing to go to, which is great. Because, as I say, they were always very positive, upbeat things. So yeah, it was a bit of a roller coaster ride, but great stuff.
I think personally, I don't know, I'd have my good days and my bad days, I think, with that sort of scenario, because walking through the quarry, should I say, people tend to sometimes recognise me because of the biscuit, and they'll be like, "Hey, it's the biscuit guy, I love what you do," and stuff like that. And sometimes I'll be like, very receptive of it. I'll be like, "Yeah, thank you, man, I really appreciate that." But sometimes I'll be like, "Thanks," quite like a rabbit in headlights. Thanks, I'll get quite shy and embarrassed about it. So how is it for you, like on the days where, there's got to be days where, I spoke to a Martin Wood about it, town crier. I said, those days when you just don't feel like being cheerful and happy, what are they like for you,
Oh, I'm always cheerful and happy.
I was expecting an answer like that, to be honest, because you are very happy.
You're not the first person today to ask me that, actually, but I think I just have a sunny disposition, really. Yeah, so I love it. And the thing is also that you have to remember is it is, generally speaking, it is just 1 year that you're in that situation. Whereas Martin, as the town crier, he's been doing it for years, so that's a bit different. And maybe there are times when if you've been doing the same thing for 10 years or something, perhaps there are days when you think, just leave me alone, But no, given that it's only for 1 year, it's not a problem. And of course, as far as I'm concerned, one of the very great joys of the whole year was the Beatles Weekend.
Yes.
Yes. It's just like you'd never normally, you just wouldn't get the opportunity to do anything like that normally. But I think, part of it is, as the mayor, you're required, as part of your year, to raise funds for a chosen charity. So you choose the charity. In my case, it was the Samaritans of Shrewsbury, who do such fantastic work across the community. And I just thought, ooh, do you know what? I don't really want to do a big fancy mayor's ball with chandeliers and everybody dressing up, and that's not me at all, really. So I thought, what else could I do? And being a lifelong Beatles fan, I just thought, it would be great to do a Beatles weekend. And this is where a bit of sadness comes in, I'm afraid, because I got together with lovely Tim King, who he and I became very close friends during this period. Lovely, lovely fellow who sadly passed away just a few weeks ago.
Which was a shock, by the way. That was a huge shock, because just a week before, he was messaging me. He was like, we need to do something with the Cartoon Festival. And I felt terrible because I didn't ignore his message. My messages come up for me quite quickly, they're like, blah, 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 blah. And I was kind of, I'll address that later. And I completely forgot. And I felt so terrible. I saw his message come up. I feel so terrible about that.
Yeah, it was awful. Just complete shock, as you say, completely out of the blue. He did a fantastic job. You both did with the Beatles Weekend, because, like you said, it's a nice thing to do for the town. Very different, but also fitting as they played here twice. I'm just going to cherish those memories for the rest of my life, and even more so because of Tim. We, as I say, became very close friends, and we would meet for coffee and cake regularly in the run-up to the event, and we spent days really together, and even subsequently we would go to the cinema together or go to the theatre together or something, and we became great friends. It was an absolute labour of love from beginning to end. We got the Mersey Beatles, a fantastic tribute band, to play at the Theatre 7. We had five Beatles films screened at Theatre 7 over the weekend. We had live music at the Butter Market, and we had live music at the Wheat Chief. We had all sorts of things going on all over town, and it was an absolute joy.
Did you work out how much you raised on that weekend? I don't mean to throw figures around.
Yeah. Well, the weekend itself was getting on for £6,000. And the total so far through various other events is over £11,000.
Wow.
So it's like a running total. We've got over £11,000 now. There's still a few bits and bobs going on. Obviously, because of the situation we're in, we can't do a great deal at the moment. But it's going to be well over £11,000.
That is fantastic. Congratulations. You've done that.
Thank you very much. Yeah, it's just been a joy from beginning to end, and I've struck up a great friendship with the Samaritans locally as well. They're a fantastic bunch of people. It's just been great.
And have there been things that you've seen in the town locally since you became mayor that you weren't aware of? You're like, oh my God, this really happens. It made you, proud, or become aware of something you weren't aware of before.
There's some organisations that I'd never heard of before, or at least I thought they only existed in cartoons. There was one. You'll remember, Alex. You'll remember the Flintstones.
Oh yeah, of course, yeah.
Fred and Barney. And there really is an organisation called the Royal Antediluvian Order of the Buffaloes. And I swear to God that Fred and Barney and the Flintstones were in the buffaloes. I'm sure unless they were water buffaloes or bison or something.
But yeah, they wore those big furry hats with the horns. They used to go bowling together. Right. Yeah.
That's it. Yeah, they do. Yeah. And I thought, nah, that can't be real, surely. I was invited along, and sure enough, it's the Royal Antediluvian Order of Buffaloes, and the gentlemen of a certain age, I have to say, and they all wear chains and badges and medals and all the rest of it. And it's another one of those ancient organisations that raises lots of money for charity, but I didn't really know they existed until I actually saw them with my own eyes. So that was interesting. It's just the variety, Alex, is astonishing, And I think one of the last things I did, days before the lockdown, went to open a store in Battlefield, on the Battlefield retail park, and it was selling hot tubs and spas and that,
Nice.
And it was just opening like 2 days before everything was locked down. And it was I think it's pretty much the last thing I ever did, really, as mayor. And we were invited by the press photographer to get in. Luckily, we didn't have to take our clothes off, but myself and the owner of the shop got into a hot tub together, fully dressed, for the purposes of a photograph for the Shropshire Star. I thought, this is totally bizarre. Just sitting fully clothed in a hot tub with a complete stranger for a photograph, And things like that would happen all the time. When we launched the Shrewsbury game of Monopoly,
Yeah, I was there.
You were there. Mm-hmm. And that was another occasion when I was asked by the Shropshire Star to do something daft. And I was persuaded to, as you know, the launch was at Shrewsbury Prison. And I was persuaded to go into a cell and shut the door behind me. So I was looking through the bars of the cell door because, of course, in Monopoly, do not pass go, all this, or go straight to jail and all that. So hence the connection between Monopoly and the jail.
I gotta say, like that's one of the best things I ever recorded actually on the Biscuit was we were recording you guys as you were playing the very first ever game of Monopoly, and the banter between you guys. I think you were having a bit of a mini tantrum about the ethics of some decision someone had made, and it makes me laugh every time I hear it because you're like, I don't think it's very fair to put blah, 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 and we were just laughing. It was so good, so funny.
Yeah, no, it was a good day. Just so many events like that, really. Graduation day for the colleges and graduation day for the university centre. Just really happy occasions, and the switching on of the Christmas lights was one of my favourites. A magical evening.
Yeah, that was a good night. That was. I remember Charlie was there. He was selling his Christmas cards. I remember Charlie Adlard. I was in the crowd looking up. That was a really good night, yeah. You've had some good moments. And I was worried that, obviously, with what's happened with the lockdown, that it would have left a nasty scar on your experience as mayor. But you've had some magical experiences before then that you'll always remember, I guess.
Yeah, I suppose it affected the last couple of months of the mayoral year, really, because we had so much planned. My calendar was absolutely packed. And, of course, overnight, we just had to scrap everything. And so that was a bit sad. And, a few people have commented that it kind of fizzled out, really, So it was a kind of ending your year with a whimper rather than a bang sort of thing, because it did kind of fizzle out. And as I say, I don't expect very much to happen over the coming months in terms of mayoral engagements. But hey, what a fantastic year! Yeah, it's it really was great.
You got to see some great things though, some great resilience by people. I think, especially like Castlefields and the way they all stuck together and created that great community, and what happened with Prince Rupert and the outreach work that they did there. I mean, even though you weren't able to go that, it must have been a lot of pride for you to be able to see that.
Yeah, it is a wonderful town, and there's a great sense of community. You mentioned Castlefields. Definitely, that's one great community, and that's where I grew up. And my boyhood was spent in Castlefields, so I have a special connection to Castlefields. But certainly, that community spirit, it was everywhere. I now live on Reebrook, so we have the same sort of situation here, where we've been helping people that have been in isolation or shielding. going to the pharmacy and picking up prescriptions for people, or going to the supermarket to get their groceries. There's that going on here as well. And I think there are little groups like that all over Shrewsbury, and it does the heart good.
Yeah, it really does. I mean, I kept saying it enough. I felt like I was saying it too much. In fact, I was like, look at all the amazing people. Look at this that they're doing, and looking at that they're doing. But it did fill me with a lot of pride seeing these things. I mean, we've lost a few. I mean, we lost Button and Bear, which was really sad. They were an amazing shop. There's a lot of people really struggling. But, I mean, like you're saying, optimistic, but not going a bit too far with what Boris has said today. And, hopefully, I mean, you got, 2 months left? A few months? Well, no, it's July, June. So you got a good few months left to...
Few months,
yeah. If things start opening again and coming back to life, your calendar may fill up again very quickly, I can imagine.
It might do. Even if it's just... I mean, we're still largely social distancing, even if it goes down to 1 meter and all the rest of it. But so it's not going to be quite back to normal, but we're getting there. And yes, let's be optimistic, and it would be nice to think that there will be some events over the next few months.
In between mayor and mayor, is there a communication that strikes up? Like when you first became mayor, did you speak to Jane Mackenzie, and did she give you advice?
Oh, sure.
And then when you pass on to Gwen, will you do the same thing? Is there that sort of communication?
Sure.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, Gwen and I, we were going for a coffee. We went for a coffee together. It was just days before the lockdown, and there's a lot of that goes on behind the scenes, meeting other councillors, and that goes on all the time. And they're a friendly bunch, they're all, fantastic people. So, I mean, Jane Mackenzie is a personal friend of mine, as is Tony Parsons and a lot of the other councillors. And, that goes on. Interestingly, I think since lockdown, if anything, that communication between the councillors has increased, really, because we do an awful lot on Zoom. And in some respects, and you've probably found this as well, Alex, in some respects, it kind of allows you to perhaps spend a bit more time talking to people somehow. I'm not sure how that works, but maybe if you meet for a coffee, you keep looking at your watch thinking, I've got to be somewhere else, I better get off, Whereas when you're on Zoom, that doesn't really happen so much.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I do this a lot anyway. With the other shows that I do, where Tom is in America and stuff, that has been difficult. But with everything that happened with the Biscuit, we were about to go out and hit the events. We were meant to go to festivals and things like that. So that kind of stopped for us. So we did end up using Zoom and Skype more, but I found myself relishing human contact in a normal way, of course. But going to the studio, we opened the studio last Monday. We've now been able to go in and socially distance in the studio and get some great, interviews done, which it's been fantastic. I mean, being taken away from that and then being given that again, it makes you realise what you took for granted, I guess.
Yeah. So you're still enjoying the Biscuit then?
Oh, I love it. I love it to pieces. I mean, a huge shout out to Peg's support, who High Sheriff Dean has been pushing. She's been pushing for support and for children's needs and things like that. And that was one of the charities she's illustrated was Peg Support. So we got in touch with them, and on the power of one of the shows that we did on the launch day that we released it, people started getting in touch with Pegs. So it shows that our people listen to our show and it affects people, and that was so heartwarming for me, more for Pegs and for the family that we helped, but at the same time people are listening, and that just reignited my passion, I guess, of that we're doing something good, and that means more to me than anything.
Great. Yeah,
I love it.
Nice to know.
Yeah, the team has grown, and we've got a great support behind us. What comes next after you then? When you finally hang up your cloak, what's next for you? Have you got any plans? Are you just going to relax, take it easy, or are you going to get right in?
All of those things. By the way, can you hear the printer going here? I'm sorry about that.
It's fine. It's fine. I'm a dab with the editing. I can take that out. Don't worry.
Yeah. No, it's all good. Yeah, I've got so many projects on the go. Really, I don't know where to begin. But there's several things that I do, and I'm sure I've mentioned to you before, Alex. There's the DEEP project, which is Dementia Engagement and Empowerment Project, and I'm involved with them, which is setting up groups all over Shropshire for people living with dementia.
Nice.
So, people, if anyone interested in that, please drop me a line, either email me or give me a call, whatever. The other thing that I do is the Bellevue magazine. Which, it's very, very time consuming. That's been affected a little bit by the pandemic because distribution was a problem, without going into too much detail. And all the rest of it. So, that's had its problems, but hopefully I'm going to carry on with that. So lots of, and writing. I'm just always coming up with ideas for both fiction and non-fiction, so I'm always doing that. Bit like you, Alex, sort of got fingers in lots of pies and 101 ideas.
Yeah, those things that go on inside your head, you've got to get them out, haven't you? You've got to be able to do it. Controversially, I'm thinking of, I don't know how, I almost don't care, but I would love to get a historian on to talk about Clive. Not to in any way to sort of point fingers or to throw one vote to whatever's going to happen to the statue. I just want to talk about history. The actual facts and find something fascinating. So if anybody's listening to this and wants to get in touch and do that, I think I'm going to speak to Maggie Love about that because I think she'd be great. But just to talk about that history, because I find it's fascinating anyway to talk about. But this is something that's in my head and I need to get out, and I like that. I think you're very much the same. That once you've got an idea, rather than leave it rattling around inside there, you got to get it on paper, right? It's important.
Yeah. And you're a big comics fan, I know.
Oh, I love my comic books. Yes,
and I'll bet you've come up with loads of ideas, and you'd like to explore that. I don't know if you sort of dabble in writing or art or whatever.
I do. I've got this. I keep talking about this book. I think it's £1 million idea, but I just haven't got time to sit and write a book. It'd be a huge book. But I'll one day I'll sit and I've written the first chapter. But I may need to go back and look at it. But there are ideas that I'd love to get onto. It's just finding the time. This is my passion very much. So is in front of a microphone. I think is what the role I was born to play. If I'm honest, I'm a modest guy.
Just before I came on for this chat, I stumbled upon this.
Wow.
For the sake of your listeners, folks, is the fantastic Christmas annual from 1969, which has Iron Man on over the front. And I was a big American comics fan when I was like 10, 11, 12. Spider-Man was my favourite, really. I got lots of Spider-Man comics from that era, and Daredevil and Batman and all sorts,
The originals are great, aren't they? Going back and looking at the language that they used and the way they would tell the story and what action they thought would grip the audience at the time. It's all changed now, hasn't it?
It has. But yes, they are of a type. And the little newsagents in Claremont Street in town? That's where I got my American comics from. And on a Saturday afternoon, we'd go into town with Mum and Dad. Mum and Dad would do the shopping. And then before we went home, my little brother and I would go into that newsagents in Claremont Street, and there would be a pile of American comics, well, several piles. And they when I say a pile, they were just piled up on the counter in no particular order. And they'd been imported, they were literally American comics, which again, you wouldn't see that anymore. No. But they were exotic because they had adverts for American toys and American, card games and things, and G.I. Joe, who was the American version of Action Man, and all this. So they were really exotic because it gave you a little insight into life in America. And they smelt fantastic. They had shiny covers and then sort of newspaper paper inside. And they were just so exciting. And I would always choose one, and my little brother would choose one, and we would read them on the way home. Just fantastic.
It's them kind of smells that, like, if you smelt like the fresh magazine or something. I mean, you make your own magazine, whereas sometimes if you smell that, it take you straight back to those days where you were picking up your comic books. I love that. My earliest memories not earliest memories, but one I remember vividly. I was about probably about 12, 13. And we would go to W.H. Smith's, me and my friend. I didn't have a lot of money. Like, I couldn't ask my mom for a subscription on a comic book, or I would daren't ask for money. Like, he'd be like, no. But like, we would sneak into Smith's and we'd lie on the floor, literally lie on the floor, and we'd read the comic books on W.H. Smith's in Wrexham on the floor, and then we'd get the guy coming around going, "You can't read in here, mate. You need to buy the books," and we'd get turfed out. But then we'd be there the next day.
Yeah. Happy day.
I mean, they are, and I like the emotion that I get from reading comic books. I used to read a lot of The Flash, and I remember when it moved to the New 52, when that began. I read the first Flash book, and it was an episode where he couldn't stop running. He was running too fast. He was literally seeing things before they happened because he was running too fast. And there was like 5 pages where he was doing one thing and another thing, and there's all these panels on this one page, and it gave me so much anxiety. I was kind of like, wow, this is clever. And that's the power of comic books. That's what I love about it. Good storytelling. It's important. But like the creative arts, going back to Shrewsbury and kind of enjoying that, perfect segue. Creative arts in Shrewsbury. Shrewsbury is one of those towns that I just think that there's just so much raw talent on every single corner. Is there anything that's caught your eye? Things that people have made and things you've seen when you've been out and about that have just made you like your heart skip a beat,
Yeah, well, because you can't be everywhere at once. So sometimes you're not aware of all the richness and diversity of what goes on. And one of the places that I've never paid enough attention to is the Hive.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's so much going on there.
Mm-hmm.
There's live music, and there's films, and there's theatre, and there's so much happening. And it's kind of tucked away down a little street, and you hardly know it's there. But it's a fantastic place. And it was a great pleasure to go along to some events there. Just like the whole atmosphere of the place, really. You walk in, and there's lots of leaflets, and it's very welcoming, and it's very, very creative. I just love that. I love, as you were saying about comic books, it's that feeling that you can kind of do anything, really. You can take a blank sheet of paper and you can do whatever you want with it, and it just, that's exciting. And so when you walk into a place like that and you see all these different things going on, live music and art, and it's great. I love that. And I really must pay more attention to the Hive. That's one of our little gems, I think.
I think everybody does. I think the more we talk about things like that, the more help and more support people can give. It is such a nice place. I remember I was walking around with posters. I was giving out biscuit posters, and I always feel cheeky when I go up to someone like, can I put a poster in your window or something? Because it's a hindrance. But I walked in. I was like, I got these posters. Can I put? And she was like, "Oh, you're the biscuit guy." And I was like, "Yeah, I'm the biscuit." She goes, "Absolutely, yeah. Give me another one." And she was so lovely. It's such a nice atmosphere. So you're right. The Hive is not just for my own personal reasons, but for what it offers to the town, of course. So,
yeah. I mean, the Bear Steps is another place as well. There's a little gallery at Bear Steps, and how many of us just walk past, without even giving it a glance, And they have some really excellent exhibitions there. And, it's just a case of, if you've got half an hour or something, just pop in and have a look round. It's great.
I've got a crazy amount of love for Bibbs and the guys that were, at the Bear Steps, because, like you said, I mean, I've walked past it a million times. But when we were at the Darwin Festival and we were talking about, Bibbs did that amazing show about the Darwin family. I just felt like a real connection with them. I just felt, it was really nice. It felt good there. And I was there today, actually. I was taking pictures around Shrewsbury. I want to get some artwork for all these shows I'm putting out. And I looked at Bear Steps Gallery and I just smiled. I was like, I love that place.
Yeah. I do wonder, Alex, I wonder about tourists, when people arrive in the town, if they actually are aware of all these wonderful things. I don't suppose they are. It wouldn't cross their mind, would it, to pop into the Hive or pop into Bear Steps? They would just perhaps go round the shops, have a coffee, maybe visit the museum, But there are so many other places. I suppose you just couldn't do it all in one day, really. The other place that's a bit off the beaten track is the Parade of Shops.
Yeah.
And it's just tucked away, and you wouldn't necessarily think about going there. It's just a little bit off the beaten track.
Yeah, and if you went to the Parade, you'd see our studio. That's where we are, and I love the Parade. I think it's fantastic. It's such a brilliant building. It's such an amazing building to be working in and be around. You feel, I'm in awe of that place. You walk around those corridors, and it's got a special feeling in there. I mean, you go downstairs and you see all the signs and you see the glass fronts of the stores. It feels like you're in a bazaar, like abroad, and there's all these amazing little trinket-ish type shops. And I love the place. I think it's great. I think you're right. Yeah. There are so many places like that. Fish Street. Coming off Bear Steps, you go down Fish Street, or I was down Grope Lane earlier, and I was kind of like, I try and picture, and it's not hard to do. You can kind of walk down certain places in Shrewsbury, and try and imagine what it looked like. In the Victorian age, but some places that I wouldn't touch, like Grope Lane, where you can look at it and be like, yeah, this place would have been awful back in the day because of the life that was down there.
I have to say, I'm a big fan of Facebook. I spend a lot of time on Facebook, and there are, for the love of Shrewsbury, that Lorraine does, that's just such a great Facebook page, and there are lots of others as well that talking about the history of the town, that celebrate the history of the town, and all kinds of fantastic photographs turn up, Victorian scenes and that, and you think, good grief, I've never seen that before. One popped up the other day of the forecourt of the railway station, and I'd never actually seen this scene before, and it shows you the original Castle Street, just beyond the railway station, the original shops and that, and it was quite an eye opener. You thought, oh, I hang on a minute, I'm not sure where we are. When you see pictures like that, and you think, right, now I've got it now. Yeah. I just find that fascinating. As you say, it's quite easy in a town like Shrewsbury's to imagine times gone by.
It's those pictures of the construction, actually, or the demolition, I guess you could call it, of the train station. And you realise how much work would have had to have gone in to almost dig that basement and add that lower floor. it would have been horrendous. Like today, that would have been like. That would take a long time, even today, so it makes you appreciate it.
It does make you wonder. You think, well, was that really, did that make sense, to excavate underneath the existing building and then build another layer? It does seem quite bizarre, but beautifully done.
Over the last year, I have been to see so many amazing things. I mean, I went on one of the guided tours of Castlefields with Stan Sedman, who's obviously a huge hero of Shrewsbury. He's the leading voice, I think, in guided tours around here. That was an amazing experience for me, because I do love the history, and that's one of the things that draws me to Shrewsbury is the history,
Yeah, we all love Stan. Yeah, he's great, and he just puts it across so nicely, doesn't he? He's just so knowledgeable. Yeah, I've been on a few walks with him, and he seems to. You could just put him outside any building, and he'd be able to tell you stories about it.
Yeah. And that's what I found out. I mean, a shout out to Ron Morgan as well, who came on my show, another author. I always mention it, that he was sat in my house. I was living on Bellevue Road, and I pointed to the big building across the way, and I was like, I always wondered what that was. And he was like, yeah, that was an old MOD building. If you'd have been here like 40 years ago, you'd see military trucks all driving up there to park in the car park. And I was like, how do you hold this knowledge? It's really is respectable.
Have you had David Trumper on the Biscuit?
I have been trying to get David Trumper on. I don't want to be a pest, so I think I've messaged him on Facebook, which I don't think he uses. Right. I can't find a way to get in touch with him. So I don't like to come across as a stalker, but I would love love to get Dave Trumper on the show because he was my old teacher. He taught me Lady Grove.
Oh wow! Yeah.
And there is a funny story about Dave Trumper where I made him lose his mind because we did the school photograph where we all lined up, and I went cross-eyed on the photo, and it was the full class portrait, not just the individual one. So they had to get the photographer out to do it again, and he gave me a right rollick, and he really did. I deserved it. Oh, I'd love to talk to him to find out if he remembered that, because he must remember that, because I caused so much damage that day just by being silly, really. Yeah,
he's a walking encyclopedia. He is.
I imagine so. He was such a good teacher. One of the projects we did was it was in year 6, I believe, and he was like, "We're going to plan a trip to like an exercise. We're going to plan a trip to Germany." So like he would let us choose which like motorways to get down to the ferry port, and then from the ferry port where we would get off at France and where we would drive through France to. And it was one of the most, I still remember that exercise today, because I learned road names. We learned how to use inventories and what you'd take with you, and it was such an amazing exercise, and that was something that he put together. He's a great guy. I'd love to get him on.
Sure.
Yeah. Is there anything that's taken you by surprise as mayor? Was there something that you didn't think you would feel about something that you felt overwhelmed by? Like a flush of emotion that really touched you.
Now there's a question. I think I've been. I suppose, to begin with, when you become mayor, you don't really think too much about all the pomp and ceremony and all the big church services that you have to go to and so on. And I think I've been pleasantly surprised by a lot of that, because yes, I am very interested in history and heritage, and I suppose tradition and all that. But I didn't know very much about it in terms of the life of Shrewsbury, and those big events like the mayor making ceremony at St. Chad's and things like that, they're tremendously moving. So when you say, have I been, overwhelmed by things, there's been a couple of occasions where I've been deeply moved by all that, the tradition and the history, and the way in which, especially nowadays, it may not have been the case in years gone by, but the way that there's this inclusive thing going on now where everyone is welcome, no matter what your background, whether you're a believer or a non-believer, no matter if you have faith or no faith. I love the fact that everyone is made to feel welcome.
Yeah.
And that I've been really struck by that. Again and again, really, at these big services, where you perhaps are a little bit embarrassed or a little bit, I'm not sure how to deal with this. But everyone puts you at ease, and as I say, everybody is made to feel welcome, and I think that's fantastic. I don't think that was necessarily the case years ago, and I think if you didn't know, to put it at its simplest level, if you didn't know when to stand up and when to sit down and when to kneel and all that, you could make a complete fool of yourself quite easily. And I'm quite sure that I've made a fool of myself on numerous occasions.
Oh, I doubt that. I doubt that. I mean,
but, I just think it's lovely that ministers of every faith now go out of their way to make everybody feel welcome and relaxed. And I like that. So, in fact, you can almost, if you don't agree or believe in what's happening around you, then that's fine. You can kind of sit and observe and enjoy what's happening without feeling uncomfortable.
Yeah, that's nice. I like that. And I was going to ask, actually, can you compare your mayor opening ceremony, or your congregation, to a wedding? It's all about you, right? It's all about you. It's like all the eyes are on you. They're watching you. They're looking at you in your fancy coat, and you're walking through town. Is it comparable to a wedding?
Nice to hear you say that, Alex, because my wife is always saying, it's not all about you.
It is all about you. You're the mayor of Shrewsbury, and that must feel...
Okay.
You know?
Yeah. I mean, obviously, it is it's a spectacular day, that is, the actual mayor-making thing. It is definitely comparable to your wedding day, because, how often would you dress up like that and process through the town centre with a brass band and all that? It is absolutely exceptional. Yeah. And the other one that will live long in the memory is the flower show day, because my wife and I were driven in a vintage Rolls Royce from the castle. So we arrive at the castle, we get into our mayoral get-up, we are then put in a vintage Rolls Royce, which is a beautiful, beautiful thing, and chauffeur driven through the town centre to St Chad's, and then we get out and we're welcomed into the quarry for the opening of the flower show. It's pretty amazing, really. So you've got, the town crier and the high sheriff and then the Lord Lieutenant and all these people. It's pretty amazing. And what a great day that was. It was just from beginning to end.
To a point.
Well, the weather. You're talking about the weather. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Well,
never forget that. Never forget that. That's the first time I went viral. I put a video up of the rain and coming off one of the marquees. That was a crazy day. I remember seeing you actually in the dingle. I nearly grabbed you but you looked really hustled. You bustled. It was like you looked busy. You were getting taken from one place to another, and I didn't want to shove a mic in your face. But I wish I had, almost, because I didn't get any interviews that day because of the weather. It was
Well, it won't surprise you to know, Alex, that when the downpour came, we were undercover.
Good.
So we didn't get wet at all. And then there was the Queen tribute band, who were amazing, and there were the fireworks, which are always amazing. That's my favourite bit, the fireworks. It's just a heck of a day.
It is a shame. I mean, we understand why there isn't one this year. We all understand that. We all appreciate that. But yeah, it's a shame it didn't happen. It just means it'll have to go bigger next year. If you could give Gwen, the new mayor, 3 pieces of advice, I'm sure you've already talked about it. What would you say to her? I'll put you on the spot. Why don't you? It is pressure. Have some of that.
Okay. Number 1, try not to eat too much cake. Number two, on a hot sunny day, don't wear too much under your mayoral robes. My goodness me, on flower show day, wearing the robes. Oh, that was, yes, it did rain, but it was also pretty hot as well.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And and most of all, just enjoy it and just cherish it, really, because it's a once in a lifetime thing, and it's a great year.
And finally, you say you like Facebook and you like to give it. Did you ever go into those comment threads when they mentioned you on a certain, say on the Shropshire Star did a story on you? Did you ever go into the comment threads and see what people were saying about you, or is that a big no-no?
Why? What were they saying?
People say negative things about me. It's part of being a public image, I guess, in the public eye.
I'm delighted to say I've not seen anything negative. Let's put it that way.
Good. I haven't seen anything. People love you. People have really adored what you've brought to the town. I definitely.
Yeah. They love you too, Alex.
I'm sure deep down, so a lot of people. And actually, do you know what? I think you're right. There's a lot of really good support we're getting at the moment, which I really do like. I want to say thank you to them, but also thank you to you. You gave me a chance. You put me in the Bellevue magazine. We met for a coffee. We talked about what I did, and you did that for me and what I was doing and the impact we're having on the town. So you actually had a real good influence on us from the very beginning. So, I owe you a lot, sir, and you've done amazing things for me.
No.
No.
Yeah, it's an absolute pleasure. And I think I'd mentioned to you, Alex, ages ago that years and years ago, I came up with this idea for a PR company or something, and I was going to call it the Shrewsbury Biscuit. I just thought, what a great name for anything, really, But it just seemed to fit perfectly, and so yeah, when you came along as the Shrewsbury Biscuit, I thought, yeah, that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, you haven't got that copy written somewhere, have you? I don't owe you some money somewhere, some royalties.
I'm sure I can dig it out. Yeah.
The Mayor, Phil Gillam, you've been amazing. Thank you so much for coming on our show again. I've really enjoyed talking to you every time I see you. And hopefully, I mean, fingers crossed, big fingers crossed. I don't want to fill up people too much optimism and cause chaos. But if there are events between now and October, I hope to see you on the road soon. That would be really nice.
Great. Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much. Guys, this has been an amazing episode. I think you'll agree. If you've got any comments about this episode and would like to get in touch, email us. Our email is shrewsburybiscuitpodcast@gmail.com. I say that more often now because people are actually emailing us now. It's great. Get in touch. We want to speak to you. And also check out our website, which is www.theshrewsburybiscuitpodcast.co.uk. All of our audio is accessible there. Rather than using Podbean, Spotify or Stitcher or iTunes, whatever you want to use, you can go onto our website and play it directly off the website if you wanted to choose to do that. But Phil, thank you so much for joining us. You've been a pleasure as always.
Thanks, Alex.
Thank you very much, guys, and peace out. Yeah.